Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Beyond the Gates just delivered one of the most jaw-dropping power moves we have ever seen from Bill Carter. And if you think you know where this story is going, I promise you don't. Bill Carter has always been a man who operates on his own terms, moves at his own pace, and answers to absolutely no one. But what he had did late last night, alone in his office, in the quiet dark with nothing but a pen and a revisited document, is the kind of move that doesn't just shake a family, it detonates one. A will rewritten, names removed, new heirs added, and the two people whose names appeared on that updated document, Isaiah, the son Bill never publicly claimed, and Nicole, a woman who had no idea how deeply entangled she already was with his family, are now standing at the center of a storm they never saw coming. Fairmont Estates will never be the same after today. Let's start with what makes this whole thing so deeply unsettling before a single word of that revised will was even read aloud. Bill Carter did not do this in a boardroom, surrounded by lawyers and witnesses and the formal architecture of power. He did it alone, late at night, one lamp, one desk, one document, and the expression on his face, cold, calculated, entirely unreadable, told you everything about the nature of this decision. This was not impulsive, this was not emotional, this was something he had been sitting with for a long time. Something that had been building in him quietly while the rest of the world went about its business completely unaware. When he murmured to himself that this was how it had to be, there was no conflict in his voice, no hesitation, just the particular certainty of a man who has already made his peace with the earthquake he is about to cause. The revised document sat beside the original, and the differences between them, while subtle on the surface, were devastating in their implications. Names removed, names added, entire futures redirected with nothing more than ink and intention. And when Bill picked up that pen and signed the final page, barely pausing before doing it, the weight of that moment was enormous because the stroke of a pen in a room like that, wielded by a man like him, doesn't just redistribute money, it redistributes identity, belonging, and power in ways that will take years to fully unravel. I keep coming back to that image of him sitting alone and doing this at night, deliberately, quietly, with no audience that tells you everything about his relationship to consequence. He doesn't need witnesses, he already knows what he's done. By morning, the ripple effect had already started moving. Whispers among the staff at Carter Enterprises, urgent, uneasy. The specific energy of people who sense something significant has shifted but don't yet know the full shape of it. Did you hear the he updated the wheel? No way. Yes. Last night, nobody knew the details yet, but everybody knew what it meant when Bill made a move. Consequences were coming. That is the kind of reputation you spend a lifetime building, and Bill has earned every bit of it. Darlene felt it first. She was standing in her kitchen when her phone rang. Bill's lawyer, with that particular tone of voice that doesn't need to say anything alarming because the careful neutrality of it is alarm enough. I think you should come in. Four words, and Darlene, who is already carrying the enormous weight of having her long held secret about Isaiah's paternity finally out in the open, felt the cold of it immediately. As she grabbed her keys, the question turning over in her mind was the same one she has probably asked herself hundreds of times across the years. What has Bill done now? The fact that she phrases it that way, not what has happened, but what has Bill done, tells you everything about the pattern of her experience with this man. Across town, Isaiah was still processing the seismic revelation that Bill Carter is his biological father. His world had already been fundamentally restructured. He was already trying to find his footing on completely new ground, and into that already destabilized space came the sense that something else was arriving. He just didn't know yet what it was. He didn't know his name was already printed in that document. He didn't know that Bill had made a decision about his future without consulting him, without warning him, with the same absolute unilateral certainty that defies everything Bill does. And then there was Nicole, sitting in her office trying to focus, her mind drifting back through everything that had happened with Keel and Marisa, feeling the low hum of unfinished business that she couldn't quite name. She had a feeling it wasn't over. She was right, and the reason it wasn't over had nothing to do with what she thought it had to do with her connection to the Carter family ran deeper than she had ever realized, and she was about to find that out in the most public, most disorienting way possible. The gathering at Carter Enterprises at noon had the atmosphere of something formal but deeply charged. The kind of room where everyone knows something significant is about to happen, but nobody knows quite how bad it is going to be. Darlin, Isaiah, a handful of other figures bound to the Carter legacy in various ways. And at the head of the table, Bill standing as the room went quiet, thanking everyone for coming with the kind of deliberate calm that only makes everything more ominous. When Isaiah pushed back immediately, demanding to know why they were there, Bill's eyes flickered toward him with a recognition that carried the full weight of what had recently been revealed between them. We are here, he said, because I have made some changes. The lawyer opened the folder and began reading, and the reactions that spread through that room were something to witness. Some names remained, others had been completely erased. Futures that people had been counting on, planning around, building their sense of security inside of, simply gone. Gasps, disbelief, the specific kind of shock that comes from realizing the ground you were standing on was never really solid. And then the lawyer read out a name that stopped everything cold: Isaiah Carter, named as a primary heir. The room froze. Isaiah's head snapped up so fast it told you exactly how completely unprepared he was for that. What? He said, and that single word carried about 15 different emotions at once. The lawyer confirmed it directly. Primary heir, and Darlene's reaction, that barely audible whisper of no, that sharp intake of breath, it broke my heart a little. Honestly, because you could hear it in it all of the years she had spent trying to keep Isaiah at a safe distance from Bill. All of the careful decisions she had made to protect him from exactly this kind of entanglement, crumbling in a single moment she had no power to stop. Isaiah stared at his father and asked him directly, "Did you do this?" Bill said yes. Why? Because it's time. And I want to sit with that answer for a second because it is such a characteristic Bill Carter response. No explanation, no justification, no acknowledgement of what it costs the other people in the room. Just a bald statement of his own decision as if its rightness is self evident. That is a man who has spent so long operating without accountability that he has genuinely lost the ability to explain himself to anyone. But that bombshell, as enormous as it was not even the biggest moment in that room. Because then the lawyer kept reading and he said Nicole Bennett's name. Nicole, who had only just walked in, who was already overwhelmed by her own separate storm of complications, froze completely. The confusion on her face was absolute. "That doesn't make any sense," she said, and Bill, watching her with that careful, measuring gaze, said simply, "It will." Two words that functioned as both an answer and a threat and a promise all at once. What does it mean that Nicole has been named in the Carter will? What is the connection that Bill clearly knows about and she does not? The weight of that unanswered question hung in the room like smoke. Darlene confronted Bill directly, her voice trembling with a rage that had years of history behind it. He had no right, she told him. He told her it was his will, and he had every right. She pushed farther. He was playing with people's lives, and his response, delivered with that terrifying composure, was that he was not playing. He was correcting. That word correcting is chilling, because it implies he sees all of this as fixing something broken, setting right something that went wrong, which means he has an entire internal framework for this that nobody else in that room has access to yet. Isaiah slammed his hand on the table and said he didn't want the money. Bill told him this wasn't about money. Legacy. He said just that one word, and somewhere outside the building, Marisa watched the chaos unfolding through the glass with narrowed eyes and said softly that Bill had finally made his move. But unlike everyone else, she wasn't shocked. She was prepared, which means there is a layer to all of this that we haven't even seen yet. The consequences of what Bill did last night are going to fracture this family in ways that take a very long time to fully surface. For Isaiah, being named a primary heir is not a gift. It is a complication layered on top of complication, arriving at the exact moment when he is least equipped to absorb it. He has only just learned who his biological father is. He is only just beginning to process what that means for his identity. And now Bill is attaching him to a legacy, a name, a fortune, a family history, without asking whether he wants any of it. The anger Isaiah is feeling is completely legitimate, and it is not going to dissipate quickly. For Nicole, the mystery of why her name appears in that will is potentially the most explosive thread in this entire story. Will told her she is more important to this family than she realizes, that there are things she does not yet know. Those words do not describe a casual connection. They describe a secret, possibly a significant one. And whatever it is, it has been sitting in Bill's possession long enough that he has made legal decisions based on it. When the truth comes out, it will not just affect Nicole, it will reshape the entire dynamic of Fairmont Estates. And Marisa, watching from outside with that quiet preparedness, she is variable that nobody in that conference room has fully accounted for. If Bill thought he could rewrite the future without anyone ready to push back, Marisa is already standing at the edge of his story with a different ending in mind. Here is my honest read on Bill Carter. He is not a villain in the simple sense of the word, and that is what makes him so compelling and so genuinely dangerous. He clearly has reasons for everything he has done, reasons he considers to be legitimate, even corrective. He named Isaiah because he believes it is time his son was acknowledged, regardless of whether Isaiah wants or is ready for that acknowledgement. He named Nicole because he knows something about her that she doesn't know about herself. These decisions come from a place of certainty that is almost admirable in its boldness, but the complete absence of consideration for what any of this costs the other people involved is where the cruelty lives. It can be right and still cause tremendous damage. Bill Carter is living proof of that. So, here is where Fairmont Estate stands right now. A will has been rewritten to people have had their futures redirected. Without their consent, the room has erupted into chaos, and Marisa is already positioned to respond. The secrets Bill is holding about Nicole's connection to this family are the thread that will eventually pull everything apart. And when that pull comes, nothing is going to be left standing where it was. Tell me what you think is going on with Nicole. What is her real connection to the Carters? And has Bill known about it this whole time? And do you think Isaiah will ultimately accept his place in this legacy, or will he fight against everything Bill is trying to build? Drop everything in the comments, give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe so you are right here when the next chapter of Beyond the Gates drops. because this story is only getting started.